Former Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs under President George W. Bush. Sir, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Maria.
Your reaction on the ban?
Well, not necessary, because we've already had very strong vetting in the Bush and Obama administrations. We've taken in 800,000 refugees since 9/11 with very few problems. The other problem with it, Maria, is that it's a gift to the Islamic State. The perception here, whether it's right or wrong, is this is a ban on Muslims. That's exactly what terrorist groups want to be able to say to their followers. And so the smarter policy, Senator Graham, Senator McCain, Senator Sauce, Senator Alexander, all Republicans have said, we've got to do this in a different way. You know, you ban all Iraqis without informing the Iraqi government, and we're trying to fight for the future of Mosul with the Iraqi government. I think the implementation has been very ragged, and they've got to turn this around.
Yeah, but I mean, the truth is he made this promise on the campaign trail. Nobody should be surprised, right? He said he was going to do it. And the truth is he's trying to figure out how he's going to stomp out terrorism. What would have been the better alternative?
The better alternative is you can protect these borders, obviously, by very strong vetting. There was a 60 Minutes program last night that showed that most of the intending refugees into the United States have to wait 24 to 36 months. They're investigated by all of our intelligence agencies, by the State Department, by the FBI and others. We already have this in place, and it's if you want to fight terrorism, don't act like we're against Muslims. Remember after 9/11, Maria? President Bush said, he made a big statement in the days after 9/11, we are not at war with Islam. President Trump has thrown himself into this without proper vetting in his own administration, did not consult the Congress. The administration needs to go back and dot those I's and cross the T's.
But Ambassador, it's Dagen McDowell, but we should point out that ISIS did not exist under the Bush administration. And also, in terms of the vetting, it was only last year that they started looking at the social media records of people who wanted asylum from Syria here in the United States. So to say that we can't do more, that's not fair.
Well, certainly we should do everything we can that's smart to protect our borders, but we don't want to do dumb things. President Bush obviously faced Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda attacked New York and the Pentagon. That was a more virulent threat to the homeland of the United States than the Islamic State has been. You're right that the Islamic State appeared in 2014, but the way to fight the Islamic State is to reinforce the Iraqi government and not surprise the Iraqis with the ban on all visitors from Iraq. So the diplomacy here and the intelligence is very important, and I think President Bush and President Obama were able to put in place a security system that is defending this country.
Steve Rogers.
You know, one of the problems I see with all of this is, first, it's not a ban on Muslims, number one.
Yeah, but that's what the ambassador's saying. That's what it looks like.
Well, it could look like what it is, but the fact of the matter is we don't have all the intelligence and information yet, and everyone's drawing all these narratives without that information. But more importantly, to suggest, for example, that we should have notified the Iraqi government. Look, I stand very firm with the president on this. We can't trust anybody, all right? It's hard to trust people overseas, especially when it comes to the sharing of intelligence and information. So, look, he did what he did. I think he did it in the best interest of this country. And the fact of the matter is that I believe at the end of the day, we're going to find out when we get all of the intelligence information that this was the right thing to do.
Ambassador, what about that? And also, we know that there's an issue with execution, but, you know, Iraq has already responded. So, Ambassador Burns, lawmakers in Iraq took action to retaliate against this move. According to the Associated Press, they have passed a, quote, reciprocity measure that will apply to Americans traveling to Iraq. What do you say to Steve Rogers as well as this reaction from Iraq?
If you look at the terrorist attacks that have taken place since 9/11 in the United States, they've been carried out by American citizens. The San Bernardino, Orlando, Boston would not have been prevented by what President Trump has done. If you really want to go after terrorism, you have to look at Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, which are not on this list. And so it's incomplete. And before you take a major decision like this, you've got to talk to Homeland Security. You have to talk to the Congress. You have to think these things through. This looks ragged. It looks fearful on the part of the United States. It's completely inconsistent with what our law enforcement has been telling us in the Bush and Obama administrations.
Well, how come Saudi Arabia and Pakistan weren't on this list? How do you respond to that?
Listen, it goes back to my point. There's a possibility that they gave us some intelligence and information. These are, we're looking at a couple of allies.
So
here,
you don't think we know everything yet?
We don't know
Kirsten,
everything.
what do you think?
You know what's interesting about what the ambassador said is what President Bush did after 9/11 and came out and said we are not at war with Islam, which was very good. However, looking to where we are now, 2017, and we're still experiencing attacks from this quarter of the Middle East, as well as homegrown attacks on our soil from people here in the United States. So my question to the ambassador is, what is the American intelligence community doing now that can help people feel safe at home, right? Because so much of this was to alleviate fear, what Donald Trump did to alleviate fear among the American population. So what can you tell them to encourage them that, people are actually working to combat these threats before they begin here in the United States with homegrown terrorists?
Right. I think what President Trump could do would be to tell the American people that the government actually is working well on this, that we have had 800,000 people come in as refugees, many more as immigrants since 9/11, and we're securing the borders of this country in that respect. It doesn't mean that we're home free, obviously. We've got to fight every day to protect this country from terrorism, but not everything the government has done under President Bush and President Obama was failing. And I think this clean the house mentality, everything my predecessors have done is wrong, is not correct. It's not smart. And there is an appearance that this is a Muslim ban because the only exceptions, of course, are for Christians in some of these majority Muslim countries. We don't want to be at war with 1.6 billion Muslims.
So
that's not smart
Steve
for the
has
United
a problem
States.
with what you just said.
There's 46 other Muslim countries that there's no ban on. 46 Muslim countries. So it's not true that it's a issue regarding Muslims.
It certainly is a ban on Muslims from the seven countries that were indicated.
Ambassador,
what about
how
the
could
46
we conclude
other
that
countries?
with all the intelligence information? We don't know everything here.
We do know a lot about these countries. Of course we do. And we know that these countries, some of them, of course, have terrorist groups on their soil. And that's the problem. But the major threat here to the United States is to be smart in what we do and to work with our allies, not against them in this fight.
I think we're working with our allies, and I think this was a smart move. I really do, because I think the American people are fed up with kowtowing to other countries and taking the backseat. The world wanted us to lead. We have a president of the United States who is now leading, and now they're upset over that.
Well, his base
I don't think that
wanted
George
that
W. Bush kowtowed to foreign governments. I think that's an insult to President Bush.
You're putting that in my mouth. I didn't say that, Ambassador. That's
you just
the problem.
said it.
I did not say George W. Bush, all right? And this is the problem we have. We have a lot of people in politics who are inventing narratives. You just invented a narrative, something that I didn't say.
No, I didn't. I'm just taking you at what you said at face value.
What did you say?
I said that the American people are tired of our country kowtowing to other nations. I did not mention George Bush. I admire George Bush, by the way. But I admire this president for being tough and being strong after 8 years of weakness.
Who kowtowed?
Well, I think our Congress has been kowtowing, for example. We've got a lot of Democrats who are in the Congress, in the Senate, who are kowtowing. Political correct policies have destroyed this country. That's what I'm making reference to.
Ambassador, final word.
The country's strong. We haven't been destroyed. We're the leading power in the world. Our borders are largely secure. We shouldn't alienate half the world by keeping Muslims out of this country. It's wrong. It's un-American. It's against our national history.
Well, I think what's in the best interest of our country right now is what President Trump is doing. Let's see how all this works out in the next couple of months.
Ambassador, good to see you, sir. Thanks very much for weighing in. We appreciate it.
Much.
Nicholas
Thank
Burns
you.
joining us
Thank
there.
you.
Coming up, the sniffles taking a